allow them to call it for anyone who isn't in here. Right, quick, resources, the code. So next question, what do you think the Federal Reserve will do in regard to interest rates in the upcoming Federal Open Market Committee meeting? And pop your answer in there and we'll get those results up as the morning progresses. This very patient person here is Ms. Jeneta Owens. She is the Managing Director of Godolphin Resources. They are a rare earth, copper and gold explorer focused on rapidly advancing the Naroobra Rare Earths Project. Is there any other tongue twisters that I can see in there? There isn't, is there? But the idea of the Naroobra Rare Earths Project is to become a one-stop shop for all that new green technology materials that are located in the Lachlan Ford Belt here in your fabulous New South Wales, in the central New South Wales. Jeneta, I'll let you go for it. And we've got 15 minutes. You've heard the rules of engagement. You know them. 2 minutes, I'll ring the bell. Would you please make her very welcome, everyone?
Thanks, Chrissy. And you know I do run to the end, so I'll try and get in as much as I can in that 15 minutes. The usual disclaimer, you can find that on our website. So just a bit of an investment highlights for Godolphin. Godolphin started as a copper and gold explorer in the Lachlan Fold Belt of New South Wales. We have 3 mineral resource estimates in our portfolio, which totals 519 kilo ounces of gold, which is quite unusual for a junior explorer. And just that alone sort of shows that our company is quite undervalued. We have most recently, and it's probably March last year, we entered into a joint venture agreement over a rare earth project near Temora in New South Wales. And we've had that project now for just over 12 months, and with the idea of advancing it towards another MRE, which we only put out in April of this year. So in 12 months, we've been able to drill that project, do some metallurgy and announce a really amazing resource, which is a testament to the team that I have behind me. Now, Godolphin Resources, I mentioned, is a copper and gold explorer and a rare earth explorer. So they are 2 quite different streams, but from the exploration side of things, we have set up the company that we have people that focus on the rare earth side of the business and people that focus on the copper gold side of the business, and they are local area experts and geologists with a lot of experience in this area. So we do have a program of works that we want to continue with on both our copper and gold and the rare earth project. Just a bit of a snapshot corporately. I'm not going to go into too much detail here. You can read this and it's not the most exciting part of our project. So just to note that we don't have a lot of shares on issue. Our market cap is what it is because of the current share price, and just again note, very, very undervalued. So where are we? We have got prime terrain in the Lachlan Fold Belt in New South Wales. Now this is an area that hosts some of the largest mines in Australia. So Cadia is one of the largest gold mines in Australia, which is fantastic. North Parkes is a very large porphyry style copper mine. And we've also got the Alkane's Tomingli gold operation there, which has been running for quite a while now. Now we've got similar rocks and similar terrain under license, and we've also got an area where in the southern part of the Lachlan Fold Belt where we found that prospectivity for rare earths, and we took on that Naroobra project. As we do have a large copper and gold portfolio, we actually also wanted to make sure that we had more than just one feather in our bow when it came to rare earths. So we took the exploration criteria that we have for Naroobra, so a clay-hosted rare earth project, and the other well-known rare earth project in New South Wales, which is a hard rock, the Dubbo ASM project, and we applied the exploration criteria of those 2 projects to free ground in both New South Wales and Queensland, and pegged a couple of new tenements. So that's work that we're going to be continuing on in the next 12 months, starting the exploration there. So this slide really does give you a snapshot of what we've been doing over the last 12 months, which is quite a lot. We've, as I mentioned, we have done a lot of drilling at Naroobra. We've been able to do some initial metallurgy, and we've been able to put out our resource, which is fantastic, and I'll talk through that in a bit more detail. But alongside of that, we have also progressed our copper and gold projects, and we're doing a lot of baseline, really scientific geology work, and a bit of getting back to basics as well. So we've got a geologist that spends a lot of time out on the ground, picking up rocks and doing geological mapping and sending those rock chips off for assay. And that helps us identify new targets. Now, just focusing in on Narrabri now and the rare earth project and why we actually decided to get involved with this project. It was brought to our attention when we were looking through our own tenement package, knowing that we were very close to the Dubbo zirconia project, that we might have the similar rocks in our own tenement package. So we looked through there and we didn't come up with anything. But it made us think about what else there might be in New South Wales. And this map isn't our map, it's actually from, you can see the references there on the bottom. So it's a government, couple of government websites that put this map out, and they note 2 rare earth projects or deposits in New South Wales. One is the Dubbo project and the other one was Narrabri. And we had the opportunity to joint venture into this project, and we thought, well, yeah, I think this is a good opportunity for us. So I mentioned it is a farm-in, so we can earn up to 75% interest over 4 years. We had very favourable terms of that joint venture, and you can see the lay of the land on the pictures there. So the first one is our first drill hole that we drilled there, and the one at the bottom is actually an overview of the site. So the outcropping hills in the background is actually the Narrabri granite. This is enriched in rare earths and it's quite old, it's Devonian in age. So over several hundreds of million years that has weathered and created this big thick weathering profile, which is now being used to feed sheep and to grow crops. So the yellow outline here is previous explorers had looked in this area, and that's why it was a project of merit. They had defined some rare earth mineralisation and a zirconium kind of flavour to that. What we wanted to do was actually focus in on those rare earths, because we did note that zirconium style mineralisation is generally associated with hard rock deposits, and all the historic drilling had only actually tested the upper clay layers. So they hadn't actually tested the bedrock. So we had a couple of options that we were thinking of. One, it might be a ionic hosted clay deposit or another type of clay hosted rare earth mineralisation, or it could be a hard rock rare earth source. So some of the first things we did was to drill and to use diamond drilling to get down through all of the clays and test the bedrock. And although the bedrock is enriched in rare earths, and that's where it's coming from in the weathered profile, it's not of a grade that we will be able to mine. But that being said, the clays above really are quite spectacular, and we were able to put out a maiden 2012 JORC compliant resource this year of 94.9 million tonnes at 739 ppm TREO. That's really quite significant for a maiden resource. It's taken us 12 months to get there, and a lot of our peers are taking several years to get to the same place. But also in line with that, we've got this 20 million tonnes of a higher grade core that we've been able to identify at over 1,000 ppm TREO, which is really for us a focus point and where we're going to look at to start our mining studies. Now, with this drilling, really importantly, what we've been able to do is identify an indicated resource. Now, this again is another step closer to being able to start our mining studies. You need that indicated resource to be that step closer. So we have the larger inferred resource, and pretty much we've got a 50-50 split of indicated and inferred, which is setting us up for a rapid pace to get towards our mining studies. The previous resource that I've mentioned from the historical or the historic explorers, we were able to uplift their grade of TREO by 126% with this latest round of drilling, which is pretty phenomenal. We also have seen an increase of 30% in the actual tonnage for this project, which is, you know, again, a fantastic result with our maiden resource. Because we did diamond drilling, we have been able to advance our metallurgy as well. We had really good sample recovery, so up to over 90% of sample recovery throughout the drilling program. And we've been able to send some of those samples off for initial testing with ANSTO. Now, these guys know what they're doing. They've been working on most of the rare earth projects in Australia. And what we wanted to know, because it's a really important question, is can this leach or not? You know, is it ionic, is it not? And we sent off lithological samples from both the fresh rock and the different layers throughout the deposit. And the answer was simply, it does have an ionic component, but it's not completely ionic. So we do need to do much more test work around that. We have been able to achieve some spectacular results with our initial metallurgy. So you can see the numbers there, 92% recovery of those very important 4 magnet minerals. And they, you know, that is under a set of conditions. We haven't tried all of the conditions yet, and that is really the next focus of work at Narrabri, is that expanded metallurgical test work program, so we can test all of the parameters to determine the different layers that we have within the deposit, whether they need to be treated differently, and what the optimum extraction conditions are. This picture gives you a bit of an idea of, it's a long section of the deposit, and I've talked about the several layers. So quite often with clay-hosted rare earth deposits, they are, you know, one relatively thin but very vast layer, and they have a very large footprint. By having this extended weathering profile and having 3 different layers stacked on top of each other in the project area, our footprint is actually much smaller, which is obviously of benefit when we're talking about open mining or open pit mining. The image to the right, or the left, sorry, is trying to describe or show the grade profile across the deposit. Now, it's a bit difficult because we have 3 stack layers and they all interact differently, but what I would like to point out to you is the circle in the middle, the orange circle, and you can see that blue is lower grade. Now, the blue is lower grade because the resource is only informed by the historic drilling. And this was air core, and it wasn't successful in reaching the depths to the bedrock. So in this part of the project area, the drilling has only gone through layers 1 and parts of layer 2, and we can tell from our geological modelling that there is going to be resources or further mineralisation below. So we can add some extra grades and extra tonnes to this project with a few more drill holes into this project area. We would have liked to have done that last year, but unfortunately, you know, most of you would know that the east coast of Australia has been pretty damp. Last year we had a lot of rain and it was underwater. It's all dried up now and it's not looking like it's going to be under those conditions again for many, many, many years. It was one of those one in a lifetime events. Just a bit of a timeline of where we're looking to go in the future, and I have sort of mentioned this throughout my talk. So we want to do a lot more mineralogy. You know, for these kinds of deposits, it really all is about the mineralogy or metallurgy, sorry, and how we can get the rare earth elements out. Now, they are a basket of 15 elements, and we do want to preference those magnet minerals, the important ones, and we will optimise that metallurgy for those. We've also got some outstanding work with ANSTO around mineralogy, so that's understanding what our minerals are, how the rare earths are hosted within those clays. Are they in residual minerals? Are they adsorbed onto the outside of the clays? So that's a really important phase for us. I mentioned that we want to do a little bit more diamond drilling. We've been talking with the department, the New South Wales State Department, about doing some high logger. So that's something else we're going to be progressing this year. And that actually is a method that scans our drill core that we've already drilled and develops an alteration and mineralogy, I guess, pattern to what we have identified so far and what we can look for outside. And we want to start a mining study. So this is really important because we've already identified that indicated resource. We can move forward with the additional metallurgy into a scoping style mining study by the end of the year. If we do more drilling, naturally we'll be able to update the resource. So that will be another piece of work that will happen by the end of the year. Alongside of that, we do have our copper and gold projects. Now we do want to do some drilling at Cyclops, which is in our Yeovil tenement. And we did receive some government funding to assist us with the drilling costs on that project. We were successful in a grant. So we want to progress the copper side of the business by drilling at Cyclops. There's 2 other projects at Yeovil, and I will skip through to show you the area where we want to drill in Yeovil. And these are copper porphyry style mineralised systems. And we've got 3 different target areas in Yeovil that we want to be drilling by the end of the year. We have drill ready targets there ready to go, and it's just a matter of getting on the ground. And I think that's me.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Aidan, Godolphin, put your hands together for Godolphin and Jeneta, please, everyone. I was looking for you everywhere, but you don't usually sport a little facial hair. You had me on the hop there, Mr. Platel. Okay, right. Before he comes up here, there was a suggestion made to me earlier, and as you know, we at Vertical Events love suggestions, and we like to make things easier for you. In the program that you have, so we give you the little program that you've got there in front of you with everyone in order, and Wally puts together the Resources Roadhouse for you, which has got an outline of all the companies in it. And it was pointed out to me that it would be very handy if everyone was in order. I will say to you that if they're not in order, because sometimes we do have to make late-minute changes, people come and they go, etc. But I will say to you, what I will make an effort to do is before everyone comes up, I'll tell you where they are on the program so you're not searching for them. So all of our next presenters are on pages 50 and 51. So if you're looking for a little background on them. Mr. Platel, let's talk about Charger Metals. So Aidan is an experienced geologist. He's been a mining executive for over 25 years. He loves the minerals industry. He loves Charger Metals. Why should you love it? Let's press the buzzer, start and find out. Welcome, sir.
Yeah, thanks very much, Christy, and good morning, everyone. Here today to give you a very brief update on Charger Metals and in particular on our very highly prospective key lithium assets here in Australia. I've got the usual disclaimers which you can read through at leisure. So I'd like to begin today with a very brief overview of who we are at Charger Metals and what exactly we're doing. I guess in a nutshell, we're an ASX listed junior explorer, and we're very much focused on aggressive exploration of our 2 highly prospective key lithium assets here in Australia. In WA, we have our Lake Jauncey lithium asset, where our maiden drilling program, so our first drilling program at our first high priority target, successfully intersected high-grade lithium mineralisation within spodumene-bearing pegmatites. We've already got preparations underway for follow-up extensional drilling to test for the scale potential of that high-grade lithium mineralisation. In the Northern Territory, we have our Bino Lithium project, directly along strike from Core Lithium's Finesse project, where mining is already underway. We have all of our permits and we're very ready to go. And I'm very happy to say we're kicking off our maiden drilling program there next week. We're well funded, we have a very tight, well supported capital structure, and we have a very experienced team. So on that note, just a quick snapshot of our corporate structure. At the beginning of this quarter, we had $5.3 million in cash, so very well funded and well funded to see through all of our planned exploration across our portfolio. We have only 62 million shares on issue and a market cap of around $30 million, which really equates to being very much fully leveraged to any future exploration success we have on our key lithium assets. Looking at our team, we have a very skilled and very experienced board and senior management. All of us have had exploration success in the battery minerals space, and all of us have been involved in taking those exploration successes through development and into mining operations. So really it is a great team and the right team for Charger with the status of our 2 key lithium assets. So what is the value proposition that we're offering here at Charger? Basically, we have 2 very prospective lithium projects. Now they're 2 projects, but each one has multiple prospects or target areas. Historically, they're very underexplored for lithium, but both now have known lithium mineralisation on them. So in other words, fantastic potential for a new lithium discovery. The other key factor about our projects is obviously the location. Both of them are located in Tier 1 Australian jurisdictions with all of the lithium mining already in place, infrastructure, ports, rail and mining infrastructure. Importantly, I guess Australia is currently producing over half of the world's lithium, so what better place to be operating in. Aggressive exploration, we're certainly cranking up our exploration. We're going to give ourselves every chance of that exploration success. So we're really gearing up to to get stuck into those projects, particularly in the Northern Territory, which is now entering into the dry season. And as I mentioned before, we have a very experienced board and senior team to really make those major discoveries and drive these projects forward. So let's take a closer look at our projects, beginning with the very exciting Bino Lithium project in the Northern Territory. Very good location, only about an hour's drive from Darwin and 63 square kilometres within a non-spodumene producing province. Of critical note, I guess, is that our project, our Bino Lithium project, is completely surrounded by Core Lithium. It's a finished project. Now, if you're not familiar with Core, they have resources of about 31 million tonnes at 1.3% lithium oxide. They're already into mining and shipping of concentrates. They're well underway. And I guess importantly, their market cap's around $1.9 billion. So certainly the big brother there. I guess on our front, and we can move on to the next slide there. Just that last point though, I guess more of critical note is recently Core Lithium announced some very thick, very high grade drilling intersections within 150 metres of our tenement boundaries. So I'll get into that in a minute, but that's pretty critical to us. So as the aeromagnetics on the far right there suggest, we certainly seem to have contiguous geology with the core ground to the north, the lithium mine, with two main LCT prospective corridors, structural corridors, you can see there in the blue on the aeromagnetics, running right through our tenure. We've certainly got into our tenure and blanketed most of it with systematic soil samples. And through that soil geochemistry, we've certainly defined some strong lithium surface anomalies that represent high priority drill targets. As I said, we're fully permitted. We have all of our access in place, Aboriginal heritage. Everything's ready to go for a very large drill program. And as I said, we're kicking off our maiden drill program, 2,000 metres of RC at this stage, starting next week. As I said, we're getting to the end of the wet season, into the dry, so touch wood. It's all rock and roll from here forwards. Looking more closely at those targets we're going to begin drilling with, and there's the Enterprise prospect, which is probably first cab off the rank. As you can see there, it's quite a large soil anomaly extending for 500 metres of strike and about 200 metres wide. It's striking north-northeast to south-southwest, and if you follow that strike down to the south, you're going to that small rectangles. So if you just see there, those little rectangles there, they are actually carved out mining leases, again, owned by Core. And as you follow that down into that small mining lease, you see what Core's called the Blackbeard prospect, and listed there are those three drill holes, some very thick, very high-grade lithium mineralisation, as I said, with about 120 metres from our border and trending right into our Enterprise prospect. So any one of those intersections on our ground would really result in a large re-rate for Charger, and hence Enterprise is a very compelling drill target that we'll get stuck into straight away. Another key prospect area that we're going to be drilling next week is the Megabucks, which sits across the highway there from Enterprise. It's a very large target with huge potential for scale. We see there, we have an 800 metre long soil anomaly, strong soil anomaly, and it's coincident with the pegmatite. The pegmatite has been mapped by historic trenching in the 80s. The pegmatite itself is over 500 metres long and up to 70 metres wide, and typically 40 metres on average wide. So real potential for scale and a very strong, compelling drill target. Moving on to the Old Bucks prospect, which is very close to the Megabucks prospect. And again, we see that strong, large soil anomaly, lithium in soils anomaly. Again, over 800 metres long and 500 metres wide. And again, we have that coincident pegmatite that we can see there. It's been exposed in historical tin tantalum workings. So again, lithium in soils, right host rocks, and a very compelling drill target that we'll be drilling in our first pass. Another key prospect we've identified is the 7-Up prospect that sits over to the east on that second structural corridor and trends right into what Core has called the Ahoy deposit. Once again, we have a large soil anomaly, 700 metres long, strong soil anomaly, and outcropping pegmatites coincident with that anomaly that you can see there in that photo. Unfortunately, the 7-Up area is a bit more low-lying than the Megabucks, Old Bucks Enterprise area. So we're still a bit too wet there on the ground to get stuck into it this program. So that'll be first cab off the rank for our second phase of drilling, which we plan on closely following our first phase and which we'll update the market with in the coming weeks. Moving on to the Lake Johnson lithium project in Western Australia. Again, it's a 70-30 JV with Lithium Australia. You may have seen our NOM, which we put out earlier this week, where we are proposing the acquisition of the 30% that Lithium Australia own. So subject to shareholder approval, we will have 100% of all the lithium and LCT rights of the Lake Johnson project. It really is a fantastic location. I mentioned earlier that Australia is currently producing over half of the world's lithium. And you may think that there's many small lithium companies out there these days. But the simple fact is there are only 14 JORC compliant resources in Australia. And as you can see on that map, there's 10 of them. 10 of the 14 deposits are in that Yilgarn lithium province, and there's our Lake Johnson project smack bang in the middle of those, and 70 kilometres from the largest one being Earl Grey. So it really is fantastic location for prospectivity, but also the port, the rails and the mining infrastructure that WA has. So just quickly on the ownership there, the orange and the pink ones, subject to shareholder approval, are what we will move to 100% mineral rights. The purple tenements to the north are a JV with Johnson Lakes, but we have 100% of the lithium and LCT rights to those tenements already. So first pass soils, and using the historic data sets and geophysics available to us, we've identified several high priority drill targets already. Those include two of the most prospective, I guess, being the Metcalfe prospect, where we have already confirmed high-grade lithium in spodumene-bearing pegmatites, and the Mount Day prospect, which is a very large LCT pegmatite field. Again, large soil anomaly with coincident outcropping pegmatites. So on the left, we have our Metcalfe prospect, originally found by a strong soil anomaly extending nearly 1,500 metres long. The boys got out there and completed some mapping, and there's several pegmatites outcropping, which they've mapped. There's visible spodumene, and rock chip sampling of those outcropping pegmatites produced some pretty spectacular results there. So as you can see, between 1.5% and up to 7% lithium oxide. So a very high grade lithium deposit there that we are following up on. And the Mount Day prospect, as I said, defined by a large soil anomaly. It's 1.5 by 5.5 kilometres. Again, that coincident outcropping pegmatite, and again you can see there's some rock chips, some very high grade lithium and tantalum results from rock chips. So moving on to our Metcalfe prospect, which is the most advanced of those. Earlier this year we completed our maiden 41-hole RC program. We've released all of the results from that program already. Very successful program intersecting what we've called a swarm of stacked pegmatite veins. Some thick, very high-grade lithium oxide results from there, really proving up what we've seen on surface, and again continuing to the north where it goes under some shallow transported cover. We strongly believe in the potential of this project to grow in scale, particularly to the northwest, where we have that 700 metres of drilling. So really we have another at least 700 metres of that strong soil anomaly to the northwest, and obviously at depth where it remains open. So preparations are underway for the next drilling program there, which will have to involve some diamonds so we can get into the network. And as part of those preparations, we completed an Aboriginal heritage survey there last week. So this is that same plan map at Metcalfe, and again in a cross-sectional view. So you can really see what we're looking at here, that swarm of stacked pegmatite veins. It's in a sheared amphibolite, so it's really just been pushed into that fabric of the rock. If you'd like an analogy, it's really like the hand. So what we've intersected are the fingers in those stacked veins. And what we're looking for at depth and hoping for at depth is we get into the palm area where these veins combined as it gets closer to the source. And we get some really thick intersections of that high-grade lithium mineralisation. So I guess to summarise all of that, why invest in Charger Metals? First and foremost, we're very much lithium focused. Now, I haven't even attempted to get into the thematics of the lithium pricing and the markets, but suffice to say, lithium is in huge demand, and that's only increasing with the ever increasing markets in the battery space and the EV space. So We're very happy to be in lithium, and I really think it's the commodity to be focused on. We have two highly prospective projects. The Lake Johnson project, where again, our first program has confirmed very high-grade lithium in spodumene, and where the scale potential remains open. And then our Bino lithium project, along strike from an operating lithium mine, several high-priority drill targets already defined, and our maiden program starting next week. Our aggressive exploration of these two projects, we're going to give ourselves every chance of an exploration success. We're going to go pretty hard at them both, especially over the next 6 months while it's dry in the NT. And with that will come that consistent news flow to the market. And we are well funded for that exploration and a very tight capital structure. So as I said before, we are very, very much leveraged to that future exploration success and that major discovery. Short and sharp. Thanks very much for listening. If you'd like to know more, please visit our website or come and see me in booth 25. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Aidan. And you are the consummate professional, because I did not hit the buzzer as I left. So I appreciate you coming to the party there and not stressing out. Ron Heeks, would you like to come and join us, sir? I promise to hit the button for yourself. So our next company chases, they chase projects in tier 1 locations, not necessarily next door to one another though, because I was talking to Ron outside and asking for an overview of the project so I could give you a headline, and he said, we've got one, it's fantastic, and that is, what are we doing, copper, gold, cobalt, that's up in Mount Isa, big patch of land, really excited about that. And I'm thinking the next one will be close by. I said, we've got this other really, really good one just come on board, lithium at Air in Norseman, other side of the country. I said, geez, you couldn't get much further away if you were in another country. And he said, well, actually, we've got another really good gold project, it's over in New Zealand. So let's hear what he has to offer us, because he's excited by all three of them. Please make Ron very, very welcome. Larvotto Resources.
Thank you, good to be here. Job's pretty well done now, actually. I feel it's got nowhere to go. Larvotto Resources, new company. We've got, hang on. Oh dear. New company listed late, very late 21, so we haven't been on the ground that long. Like a lot of people have mentioned, certainly on the east coast, we ran into all sorts of rain problems thanks to that Tongan volcano, and it just never stopped raining on some of our projects, but we're into it very aggressively all around the place at the moment. We've had a fair bit of love very recently due to a rare earth hit on our Norseman project, and we'll have a look at that. Our major project, as Chrissy mentioned, is copper, gold, cobalt around Mount Isa. We'll look at that second, but a fascinating project. And where are we? We're around Mount Isa. We're around Norseman and New Zealand, North Island. Very good location there, very easy place to operate, which comes as a surprise to some people. But our rare earths is really what's been kicking the goal in the short term. That was sort of our use the word poorly, but sleeper project. It was one that was always interesting, but we thought it might be a little bit difficult. Most of the area there is soil covered. There's been absolutely no exploration of significance done over the area. There's no drilling. So we thought it might take a while to investigate that area, and we'll have a good look at that. Mount Isa, we always knew that was going to be a winner. We've got 900 square Ks out of that. You can be on the project 30 minutes after you leave the airport. Big parcel of land, very exciting. In New Zealand, a semi-advanced gold project there. A lot of gold in the system. It's an epithermal model, and we've just completed drilling that. We don't have any results there, but let's have a deep dive in to where we are. We'll start at the Air project. This is the most amazing project I've ever worked on, to be quite honest. Normally, if I'm talking multi-metal exploration, it might be copper or gold or something. We went into this because of the nickel and potential PGE, potential of the area within the Jimbalana Dyke, which is that green east-west trending zone through there. But we are directly south of the Baldonia deposit of Liontown for lithium. And as you can see from the geophysics, those rocks extend down into our tenement there. So lithium was always on the cards. Copper's a very good potential. Western Mining actually did a little bit of work here back in the 60s and got some interesting copper intersections. And then recently we've had a rare earths hit of significance up to 12,600 ppm rare earths in clays. So an amazing area, really. It's what do you assay for? 600 square Ks. It's early stage, as I say, it's all undercover, but a lot of work to do here, and it's advancing very well. Having a bit of a zoom in, we've just completed our first air core program, which was following up some geochem anomalies, and we generated geochem anomalies for nickel, for lithium, and rare earths, and potentially PGEs as well. The tenement sits half in the Yilgarn block and half in the Albany-Fraser terrain, so it's a pretty interesting boundary in there. You actually know about it when you walk across it. The vegetation anomaly is really quite extreme. So it's a very easy one to pick on the ground. All the news at the moment, though, really is about the rare earths hit. We followed up some geochem there with just 2 lines of drilling, because our main highlight was to drill the lithium and identify where our pegmatites were. We had a big broad anomaly, but we didn't know exactly where they were. So while we were doing that, we put a couple of lines across the rare earth and came back with some very, very interesting results, and up to 12,000 ppm. So as a first pass, let's have a look-see to what we've got. It was a staggeringly good result. A lot of work to go here. We've got some metallurgical test work happening on this at the moment to determine what's the best and optimal processing route for this material. The anomaly itself is about 8 kilometres long. We've drilled two lines 500 metres apart. Both of them have come back with very, very good results and open in all directions. So it's got a long way to go, but as a first pass, it looks very, very interesting. We'll be back into this area very shortly with an RC rig and following up the lithium potential of the pegmatites. The air core rig couldn't go through the pegmatites, they're too hard. It was really just about finding where they were. So we'll get back into there, and we'll also drill some nickel and PGE targets as well. A very, very interesting target that's aligned to the pegmatites, and on that map you can see where the pegmatites, where we now know they are. But adjacent to that is an ultramafic unit. We've got significant intersections of up to 0.15% nickel in oxide material, so we're not into the hard rock there. These systems look very similar to what we're seeing at Galileo, just further along from us, and it'll be very interesting to see what comes out of the RC drill on these. I think there's a very good potential for nickel pigments, nickel and PGEs within this zone. So a fascinating area and a lot of work to go, but we're going to be seeing some pretty interesting results come out of this in the very near future. A little bit more on the nickel and the other geochem anomalies. This is within the Jimbalana Dike. 0.1% nickel in soils, incredibly high values for soils, and with coincident EM and coincident copper, and in some cases chrome. So we look forward to following these up. And as I say, it's quite unique to have so many different options on one project area. And just another example of more nickel anomalies. They're nice and tight, they tie in with geology. I should mention the rocks under here are norites, and if you're going to go looking for nickel around the world, it doesn't get any better than drilling norite rocks. Mount Isa, our lead project, 900 square Ks of ground, just outside of Mount Isa, literally 30 minutes drive from the airport, directly south of the main operation as well. The tenements there we acquired from a deal with Rio. They were actually the exploration licenses that formed the main Mount Isa mining leases. Very little work being done on them, amazingly. Very little work done on the project area itself. We're starting intensive soil geochemistry at the moment. Geological mapping, we've got a big team out here in the field. We've got 4 geos and 8 fieldies going hard at the moment. Our biggest single issue here is prioritising targets, and there's a lot of them. And This area, the only analogy I can relate to this area is that when I first went to Kalgoorlie in the very, very early 80s, Kalgoorlie was surrounded by lines of workings with no drilling, and that's what this area is like. There's workings all over the place, long lines up to 4 kilometres long of historic workings. There wouldn't be 40 drill holes in the 900 square kilometres of ground here, and the majority of those have mineralisation in them. It's quite amazing that you're in one of the world's great copper provinces. You're 30-minute drive from a smelter, and there's been no exploration. And from what you've seen from other presenters that have been up here over the last couple of days, there's a lot of activity happening in this area. There's more news coming out of here every week now than what used to come out every year. And there's a lot to go on this area, and we're getting into this big time now. We'll have a look at a couple of the areas there, just to give you a feel for what's going on. One of the lead projects, Yamamilla, 4 kilometres of strike, geochem with a coincident VTEM anomaly sitting over the top of it. It was drilled more than a few years ago. There's a hot drill hole about every kilometre. Every one of those holes is mineralised, and nothing's been followed up. So looking forward to getting up there and getting into this. As you can see, a big working at the end of the zone there. The other really interesting thing about this area is the amount of cobalt that we're seeing. It was never really assayed for, but we're getting up to 9% cobalt in rock chips around the area. So as a copper, gold, cobalt credit, it could be very, very interesting what comes out of this. And this is one of probably 40 different targets within the area. Just another look at a slightly different model. The last one was probably a sulfide hosted zone. This is particularly an iron oxide zone. There's a lot of magnetite alteration. Logistically, it's a bit tricky. It's fresh rock from the surface here. You can't drive over it. It's pretty serious walking to get over some of it. But some of the early trench work that was done pre-us, but we have replicated 10 metres at 5.6, 15 at 6.6. Really quite amazing results from near surface, an area that does not have a drill hole in it. And there's only one track in the bottom. We're looking forward to getting some IP in here and seeing what it looks like in IP. Because it's an iron oxide deposit, it doesn't stand up with VTEM, so it's really something that we need to follow up with IP. But some pretty amazing results in an area that doesn't have a drill hole in it, and you know, these aren't near surface oxide things. This is an outcropping potentially deposit. Finally, Awakiri, New Zealand, North Island. We're about 50 kilometres west of Rotorua. Very, very easy area to operate. The last tree around here was cut down about 120 years ago, so environmentally very, very few issues. It's an advanced project. It's been explored for about the last 40 years by various players, including Cyprus. There's been 10,000 metres of drilling done. That drilling identified very broad zones of gold mineralisation over a big area. And the area is 2 kilometres by 1.5 kilometres. The zone is pretty well from surface, 100 metres thick, and runs about 0.2, 0.3. So very low gold, but significant amounts. And if you multiply 2 kilometres by 1 kilometre by 100 metres by 0.2, you get a lot of ounces. I'm not allowed to do that calculation because they'll lock me up. But there's a lot of gold in the system. What are we looking for there? We're looking for where that gold came from. So there's got to be deep feeders. The mineralisation can't come from the top down. There's got to be deep feeders. We've done some geophysics over this that has given us some interesting targets. We've literally just finished drilling this, and I'm off to have a look at this project when I leave here. So we haven't seen the assays yet. It's a very, very interesting zone. It certainly has potential to be a replica of Waihi, which is a higher grade underground operation, very low footprint. And in fact, Waihi's right in the middle of a town. So it's been an incredibly easy place to operate. It's not what you think when people think of New Zealand because of where we are. It's easily the easiest area we're operating out of the 3 projects. So there's a fair bit of interest in this. That's why we went there. We had a good geophysical anomaly. The mag anomaly sitting over the top was very, very similar to Waihi. That's what attracted people. They did some surface geochem. That proved to be nearly meaningless because there's a thin layer of ash up to 5 meters thick over the top, very recent volcanic ash. By very recent, I'm talking a couple of 100 years. But it's a full epithermal system, seeing a lot of grade floating around. It's really, where are those high grade zones? Are they still mineralised, or have they drained out? That's what our drilling was designed to test. We're seeing some pretty interesting rocks come out. We don't have the assays yet, and they'll be out shortly. So that's about it for us. We're in tier 1 locations, all very interesting, all have huge potential. We're certainly multi-commodity, more than most. Most of that was intentional, but we've certainly come up with a couple of things that weren't intentional. All are very, very interesting, and all work to what people are going to need in the future. So looking forward to getting some news out and getting the teams on the ground big time this year after a pretty wet year last year. Thank you.
I think that's an understatement. I might have missed one part. Did you say to them that your water tank actually got bogged?
Yeah, the first week of drilling in New Zealand, we had 400 millimetres of rain while we were drilling, and the water truck for the rig got bogged, so we couldn't drill because we couldn't get water, even though we had 400 millimetres of rain. So
you'll have to have
some of the challenges we get.
Indeed, we love a challenge, though. That's what we love. Now, where is this fellow? Here he is. Look at him as he walks his way up here. Some people say that this fellow resembles a Cheshire cat. He's got a smile on his face, always like he knows something that other people don't. But he's always willing to share that info, aren't you? All right? Sometimes. Well, they said something else nice about you too, the most knowledgeable rare earths exec in the room. So would you please join me? It's a big claim to live up to. The MD of Ionic Rare Earths Limited, Mr. Tim Harrison.
Thanks for those kind words. Thanks for everyone for attending. So Ionic Rare Earths, we are developing an ionic adsorption clay project in Uganda, and looking at taking that product, rich in both magnet and heavy rare earths, into a Western supply chain. Early stages, but huge support from a number of stakeholders in developing that alternative, secure, traceable supply. And the third aspect of the business is magnet recycling, which is progressing extremely well over in the UK. This one probably gives a very good overview of just the dominance that China has in the rare earth industry, in the entire supply chain. It is a monopsony. The further you go in the supply chain, the more you have to deal with China as a customer. And so we've been working over the course of the last 18 months with several potential partners on providing an alternative option, putting our magnet and heavy rare earths into new supply chains that can help underpin manufacturing for Western end users. Fair to say that the geopolitical climate is very much heating up. We do see a lot of appetite from governments and those jurisdictions now trying to secure the molecules that they need for their manufacturing and military and defence applications. And I think probably the best way to put it is that the heavy rare earths out of the Makuutu basket is important for not only the energy transition on EVs and offshore wind turbines, but there's other elements there that are incredibly important for the development of F-35s, Virginia-class submarines, and Arleigh Burke destroyers. So from a military complex, there is a significant drive towards getting our molecules into those supply chains. When we look at the geopolitical climate, obviously the Inflation Reduction Act, has created a huge amount of sentiment in the US. And earlier this year, with the European Critical Raw Material Act, and Ursula von der Leyen coming out and basically, making the comment that the race is on. There's simply not going to be enough molecules to go around for all of the manufacturing that's required. So there is competition now for the access to the right products, the right projects, at a big demand now for recycling, which again feeds into the opportunities that Ionic Rare Earths is exploring. If we look at the complete supply chain and everything that needs to be built with regards to rare earths, you know, one thing to build a mine, it's another thing to build a refinery, but it's the metal making, alloy making, magnet making, which is really, you know, the laggards in the process at the moment from a Western supply chain perspective. Ionic has been working through this process now for over 12 months, trying to work through and evaluate opportunities and discussions on how we can take our products and put them into end users in Western applications. And it's a process. Everybody believes that their individual component in that supply chain is more valuable than the other, and so we're working towards getting some transparency and openness in those discussions, and I think we're slowly making very good progress. With regards to the aspects that we believe ionic rare earths can play in those emerging supply chains, obviously we have a large proven ionic adsorption clay deposit in Uganda, which is near development ready. We're working on a scoping study for a refinery which has the potential to unlock the value of our basket, and we've been working on that study for a US-based location. And the third thing, the magnet recycling is an ability to bring secondary sourced end-of-life materials, waste products from the production of magnets back into the supply chain to help with those relationships now with metal makers, alloy makers and magnet makers to provide those formative green shoots on the supply chain for ultimately a project like Makuutu to feed into. If we look a little bit more at Makuutu itself, so we've just completed a DFS on the first stage of the project. We have 6 tenements, and so this feasibility study just covers the central tenement at Makuutu, long life project, producing an amount of product that we believe that there's a market for when we're ready to produce this product in 2025. So, you know, we've done the work on defining what we think is a robust project for us to then grow substantially with the addition of extra capacity and modules to support that growing supply chain in time. The project location itself, so we're in Uganda, so 120 kilometres east of Kampala. Extremely well serviced by existing infrastructure. So we have 132 kV transmission line that runs through the tenement, supplying and exporting low-cost hydroelectric power out from Uganda into Kenya. Roads, rail available to us, mobile phone communications and water available. So as far as infrastructure goes, we have all the building blocks there for us to be able to rapidly move through construction once we get to final investment decision. Looking at our tenements and the mineralisation, so we've got about 300 square kilometres of mineralisation. The mineralisation stretches approximately 37 kilometres end to end, 3 metres of cover, and then underneath that we've got a clay zone that's anywhere from 5 to 30 metres thick. The feasibility study is on the central tenement, which is the 35-year life project that we've defined to date. Very shortly we'll be mobilising drill rigs to work on increasing the classification on the resource out on the western tenement, and also out on our eastern and northwestern tenements, where we'll be continuing to do more exploration reconnaissance drilling. To put into context, we've got a large exploration target that has the potential to double the existing resource just on this tenement alone. We drilled 25 holes, 23 came back with thick ionic adsorption clay mineralisation intercepts back in 2021. So we're keen to get out there and do more drilling here, and we've got a new prospective tenement to the northwest where we haven't drilled as yet, but we have had some very encouraging metallurgical results up to the northwest. So we're quite excited about this new northwest tenement. I suppose, you know, the thing that we're very excited about, in addition to obviously the potential of Makuutu, is the huge progress that we are having with Ionic Technologies, which is our magnet recycling subsidiary that we acquired last year. We rebranded, and we're in the process now of building a demonstration plant in Belfast. Yeah, I think the appetite now for magnet recycling is certainly growing substantially with the European Critical Raw Material Act. They've mandated that by 2030 they want 15% of what's now classified as strategic raw materials which are the magnet rare earths, to be sourced from recycling. So we see this as being an area that's going to grow substantially, and the ability to bring on, near-term production of magnet rare earths ex-China. If we look at the data that suggests the current magnet recycling probably makes up around about 40% of the total magnet rare earth supply chain. That's probably a reflection of the fact that when you make a magnet, about a third of the material that goes into making a magnet ends up as waste products that can't simply be redeployed back into making magnets via a short loop recycling. The technology offering from Ionic Technologies is a hydrometallurgical process that chemically extracts the rare earths, separates them into the individual magnet rare earth oxides, and then refines them to the high purity oxides. So we can take varying compositions of magnets, separate the individual magnet rare earth oxides and put them back into supply chain for our partners to then use that material to make a wide array of different magnet applications. Talking a little bit more about sort of the progress that we have been making in Belfast in the UK. We finalised the acquisition in April last year. The UK government gave us a grant for £1.7 million in September, and we've been rapidly working through the development of a demonstration plant in Belfast and setting up a new facility there where we're planning on processing approximately 30 tonnes of permanent magnets, waste material, to produce 10 tonnes of oxides per annum. We've got about 50 tonnes of magnets in inventory. We think there's an ability to decouple or debottleneck, I should say, the demonstration plant. And we have had a tremendous amount of interest from various stakeholders and I suppose a growing appreciation and opportunity that's happening in Belfast, with certainly a lot of policy around the UK government's willingness to accelerate more investment in Northern Ireland, but also with regards to the appetite and availability now for European investment directly into Northern Ireland via the Windsor framework. So simply put, we're taking end-of-life materials, so waste magnets, we turn them into the oxides, separated oxides, and then we're able to provide those to our supply chain partners to turn those back into high purity magnets. Just a little bit of detail on sort of the facility that we're building, and we're very excited by this. We're in commissioning now, and we expect to be making separated oxides next month in Belfast. And so with that, the company does move to a production of rare earths, and we're able to now move forward with our supply chain engagement. If we look at sort of the timeline and what the company's been focused off, I mean, we initially took a 20% interest in Makuutu back in August 2019. And it's been the focus of a lot of work over the first few years of development at Makuutu. Added in Ionic Technologies last year, and I think we've now positioned ourselves and laid a very good framework and a base for us to now, work through a number of catalysts through the rest of 2023. We are finalising now and expecting to get our mining licence application at Makuutu very shortly, working with our partners and stakeholders there with the Ugandan government. We've got appetite now for post the completion of the feasibility study, certainly a heightened level of engagement from the supply chain now and getting access to our product, and where that product could potentially go in the supply chain over the next 2 years. And coupling that with the progress that we're making with Ionic Technologies, probably an opportunity to greatly accelerate our supply chain engagement through the rest of 2023. Just to finish off where we are, just the corporate snapshot. Market cap's around about $100 million. I mean, rare earth prices have probably pulled back about 60% over the course of the last 12 months. Through the development of our project, and people in this room are probably very familiar with the Lassonde curve. We expect that coming out of the feasibility study now, close to making an investment decision, but also being a near-term producer of magnet rare earths, you know, we do expect in the near term the potential for a significant re-rate. And just to leave you with, I suppose, the value proposition, you know, it's a large proven ionic adsorption clay deposit, near development ready. It's the only product that's near development ready that's not committed to China. So with that, an opportunity for us to be one of the early movers in Western supply chains, especially for supplying heavy rare earths to end users in those Western jurisdictions. Makuutu will get larger with time. We've got a lot of exploration potential, a modular development, low capital, producing a magnet heavy rare earth product with no radionuclides. And that affords us the ability to look at a lot of different other ways in which we can monetize the mixed rare earth carbonate that'll be produced at Makuutu. And, you know, with the exposure now to magnet recycling, we are in the, I suppose, at the pointy end now of being able to meaningfully engage on the supply chain. So thank you very much for your time. We're at booth 55 and yeah, welcome any catch-ups later today. Thank you.
Thank you, Timothy. Well, the room seems to be getting a little fuller. We're going to talk about copper now. As we all know now, it's a vital mineral in the drive to electrify modern society. We've heard that the number of new Australian producers preparing to enter the market is limited. Next on stage at RIU, the anomaly. Austral Resources Australia Ltd, actively engaged in mining and producing high quality 99.99 pure LME grade A copper cathode. And this is not the cleaner down the front, the floor fluffer. This fella here knows all about the fact that they are well positioned for future growth with a substantial 2,000 square kilometres of exploration tenure in very highly promising territory. So sharing additional insights on Austral today is the company's Managing Director and CEO, he of the large pecs, to lift that large bit of metal that he's just unveiled at the front there. Would you please welcome Dan Jauncey, everyone.
Wow, what a great way to lead off our presentation. I'm a big fan of probably showing more than telling. So, you know, one of the things that makes us quite unique is that we are a producing copper mine. So we're located 120 kilometres northwest of Mount Isa, sitting right up in some of the world's best copper and base metals hub. I've dragged a plate of 99.99% pure copper cathode all the way to Sydney to show you that, again, it differentiates us with a lot of companies that we are producing copper. So just to recap that video, you know, some of the stuff that you saw, we've got, you know, we get asked a lot, you know, who are you? Where'd you find the footage of the processing facility? Where'd you find the footage of the mining campaign? And I see one of our representatives here of our mining partners here in Tees, you know, that's them, that's us. We're there producing copper, we're mining. The infrastructure valued close on $400 million. You know, we are one of the assets out there producing. But I guess one of the things that I wanted to do, not only show you the video, I wanted to walk you through a bit of the history of the asset that we have. And that is, there has been a lot of copper produced over the last 15 years from our asset. You know, sure, where we sit today, we've just completed our, you know, we just put out our quarterly at the end of March. We did $35.5 million in revenue, very close on 9 million EBITDA for the quarter. So we're now hitting our straps. But again, historically, there's been over $1 billion worth of copper mined out of our asset since 2007. Over 120,000 tonne of copper cathode produced through that facility. So we're currently mining, and that's been mined out of 4 of our 8 mining leases. The reason why this is important is to show you the fact that there has been a lot of copper produced there, but also the fact that, you know, as Chrissy touched on, we've got 2,100 square kilometres of tenement, that there's a lot more copper for us to prove up and develop over the coming years. So that facility that you saw there is capable of 30,000 tonne per annum. So those who don't know our story, you know, we listed 18 months ago and we bought on a new mine called Anthill. And we've got 40,000 tonne there to be mined over that period. So Anthill, here's our capital structure. As I said, you know, we're sitting there with a market cap of around $150 million. We're very tightly held with our top 5 shareholders. And certainly in relation to our investors, you know, most of them are kind of sticky investors. Anthill, as a snapshot, I'll give you an update or a snapshot on what Anthill is. Anthill's now at steady state production for us, which is 10,000 tonne per annum. Anthill in itself, I mentioned that, so as far as a JORC compliant resource, there's 80,000 tonne. So we're currently mining 40,000 tonne of that. And I guess the next 12 months, and I'm going to walk you through the next process of, you know, the investment strategy that we have. Our goal is to turn the other 40,000 tonne, you know, from a resource into a reserve. Austral Resources is one of the only producing copper cathode mines here in Australia on the ASX using an SX-EW processing plant. Quite unique. To build, I touched on the valuation, to build one of those plants today, you're probably looking at around $400 million. Permitting, approvals, processing, that whole timeline, 4 to 5 years. So a lot of infrastructure up on site. We've got a 180-man camp up on site. Right now, we've got 120 people up there. Anthill is a snapshot, $500 million worth of revenue over the next 4 years. Tie that back in with our March update. You know, we're sitting at around $2.79 US per pound as an all-in sustaining cost. Certainly makes us where copper's trading today, certainly makes us a very, very solid investment. I wanted to do a quick shout out here to, you know, a lot of our suppliers, contractors, call them partners. You know, we've had over 1 metre of rain, and a lot of the investors would know the area in which we are and some of the mines in our area that have faced challenges through the wet weather. We had over 1 metre of rain. You know, These guys here, we lost 4 days in total. So big thanks to all our partners and suppliers, and certainly, I guess the future moving forward for us. We appreciate what you've done for us, and we're working towards, extensions in both oxides and sulfides. So this here, so I guess if, again, from an investment perspective, you go, okay, cool. These guys are a producing copper mine. They've got a relatively short runway in mine life, Anthill, 4 years. They're going to spit out a fair bit of cash over the next 4 years. Well, where to from here for Austral Resources? I'd like to think that this slide here really shows that we have the runway and certainly the strategy to be well north of the 10-year mine life. To begin with, this year we've got a bit over $7 million in our exploration budget for the season. We're going to be drilling about 23,000 metres. If you work your way down that page, I guess Anthill, where we're currently mining, the first part for us is to focus on what we're referring to as Anthill 2.0. Continue drilling in that area and prove up and extend that mining campaign we've currently got. The next one for us, it says there pre-feasibility. We did a scoping study on Lady Colleen. So we knew it was there. We went and did some further drilling, and there was actually a lot more sulfides there than we first had anticipated. I guess we aim to bring Lady Colleen, it's on an existing mining lease. So for us, it's a quite quick segue into mining. We intend to start mining that as early as next year. That's going to double our revenue stream, and we'll end up an oxide and a sulfide miner. So I guess with Anthill now at steady state, our focus is extending those oxides, right? So I touched on the processing facility at full capacity is about 30,000 tonne. Anthill for the next 4 years is at 10,000. So it's our job, it's my job to extend that. So that's what the team's focusing on, finding more feed to put into that processing facility, feed the beast. I guess the other thing I'll touch on here is some existing mining pits in Lady Annie, Lady Brenda, and Flying Horse. So they're on existing mining leases. There's a lot of what I touched on earlier in 120,000 tonne of copper. That's where it's come out of. Copper price was very different back in 2010 to 15. So we've gone and refocused on some cutbacks, and we put an announcement out 3 odd weeks ago that showed that we've got another 30,000 tonne of oxide that we intend to start a mining campaign as early as Q3 this year. Why is that important? That's going to lift our oxide production by up to 70% for the next 4 years. So we as a business, we've just added further revenue stream. I touched on our, all-in costs. That's going to drop the fact that they're existing pits. The strip ratio is substantially lower. They're on existing mining leases. So it's a very quick way to production for us. So our goal, I guess, over the next 18 months is to end up at a 30,000 tonne per annum company. By increasing those oxides, putting it through the plant, and our sulfide opportunities. And I'll touch on a little bit later on, how much sulfides we do have in the ground that we're already aware of. Austral lifting to 30,000 tonne per annum certainly makes us a very significant business. I kind of touched on this already. It's talking about our growth strategy, and I'm looking at short, medium, and long term. For us, short term is absolutely finding further oxides, which I think we've just done, and feeding it through the plant so we can increase that revenue stream. Medium term, pulling on Lady Colleen, our other sulfide opportunities, working with some of our partners again in a tolling arrangement or a processing arrangement. And then long term, again, extending, through further drilling campaigns. You've got some very significant businesses in and around us as well. You've got Man Isa Mines, Ernest Henry, Dougal River, Cannington, Lady Loretta. I'm sure there's a few guys that I've missed there that are in and around us. We've got 120 targets in total that we intend to really, I'll speed it up. So I guess, again, you look at what we are in an investment opportunity. It's certainly focused on the oxides and extending that on our existing mining leases, and then focusing on our sulfides. Exploration, Anthill. So here's a quick snapshot of Anthill. These are the areas we're going to continue drilling. I mentioned that we've got 80,000 tonne there, and I guess we were going to really focus on drilling that this season, and hopefully, enable Tees to continue a very successful mining campaign. It's on an existing mining lease. Legacy drilling thus far has shown that, we've certainly got, about 30% of that lease has not been touched on. Lady Colleen's a standout for us. Certainly a runway for us to get into production. We used a $12,000 copper price, substantially higher than that. We're looking at about 90 million free cash flow over the next 4 years once we kick into that. And certainly using today's copper prices, and we all think that copper's lifting substantially, it's going to be, closer to 120 to 130 million based on copper price. Phase 2 of our exploration, we've got 120 targets in total. We've whittled that down to top 10. We're going to focus on 10 oxides, 3 sulfides this year only. We believe that we've already got a lot of legacy data there and information. The team's certainly focused on continuing that drilling campaign. Partnerships, I touched on our current mining campaigns, but we've also entered into a joint venture with Glencore. They've been a great partner for us to date. We've got a 300 square kilometre tenement package on our northern side, which butts onto Lady Loretta in and around that area, that we're continuing to, $6.3 million will be spent by Glencore over the next 4 years. They're certainly focused on, zinc, sulfide, and any oxides found within our tenure remain 100% ours. So we're both on the same page with that. Quick summary. I guess I touched on, we're in the right country. From a tenement package, there's around 262,000 tonne of copper mined out of the Mount Isa area annually. Our goal is to increase that. We're a producing copper mine. We're now producing a 10,000 tonne per annum. We want to triple that over the coming years. We've got a lot of infrastructure valued at over 400 million. And on top of that, we're now making cash. Makes us quite unique. Now's the time to be investing in AR1. Stewie, shout out to you. Ticker code AR1, load up. Thanks, Chrissy.
Got any big fella? Do you want to come back here for 2 seconds? Mr. Jauncey, come back here for 2 seconds. Jackson, you got your camera ready?
Sorry?
Jackson, come and get your camera ready. You've got 30 seconds. I timed you nastily because I know you've got a propensity to try. This doesn't matter what it said. It's what I'm in charge. Doesn't matter. All right. Let's see how strong you are. Can you get a picture of him pitching? Can you pick it up by yourself? I want to see if it's actually possible. Has anyone else tried to pick this up? Wait, get some branding in there. Good on you, Dad. Well done to you, mate. Well done. Good presentation. Please make him... Are you going to carry it off the stage by yourself, or do you need minions?
I'll drop it. I'll just
Yeah? Tony Rivera's got minions. He could bring some of those in here for you. No. While you're doing that, I will get someone to help. Are you really going to leave it there? What did your mother teach you? Honestly. Hold on a second. We'll pop this down here. That down there. Our next presenter, he's an auditor. He will audit you. Just watch it. That's his former life, wasn't it? He's not here as an auditor now. In fact, our next 2 presenters have got something in common. They've got a link between them. I'll go into that in a little while. Let's have a focus on what Latin Resources is going to talk to you about. So Latin Resources is our next company. They're an Australian-based mineral exploration company. They have projects in South America. They have projects here in Australia. They're focused on accelerating resource growth, fast-tracking development approvals at their flagship Salinas Lithium project, which is in Brazil. And this is their Chief Financial Officer, Mitch Thomas, giving us an update. Please make him welcome, everyone.
Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Look, it's an absolute pleasure to be here on behalf of Latin Resources, and I'll start by saying a big thank you to RIU, Vertical Events, and thanks to Chrissy. So look, for those who may be unfamiliar with the Latin Resources story, we have a flagship project in Brazil called Salinas. And since discovery of this project in 2019, I think we've made a lot of progress, and look, I'm very keen today to give you an update on key milestones over the next 6 to 12 months. So look, quickly touching on the market, look, there are a few things to, I think, mention here. So starting from a very nascent base in 2020 of 400,000 tonnes LCE, look, depending on who you look for your forecast, the industry needs to grow 6 to 7 times by 2030. And look, that's just absolutely staggering. Probably more to the point of Latin Resources is that the role of spodumene has and will continue to play is absolutely essential here. So looking at the numbers, you can see that between 2020 and 2025, spodumene supply is forecast to go from 200,000 tonnes LCE to 800,000 tonnes. So you can just see that that growth is absolutely enormous. So we need all the greenfield projects that we can. And I think more to the point is that we really don't have a clean energy transition if we don't have spodumene. A few key points why that is the case is that, look, it's proven, it's tried and tested, it works. And so in that sense, the technical risk is lower than some of the counterparts out there, including DLE, including clays, including lepidolites. It works. In terms of speed to market, look, we've seen some excellent progress from projects including Sigma, which I'll touch on in a bit, but you can get these projects up and running quite quickly. Capital is a big one. So look, I'm the CFO of Latin Resources, and I'll speak to a benchmark in a bit, but the capital for these projects to get them up and running is quite affordable compared to other lithium pathways to market. The last one, and perhaps even most importantly, in a world of ever-evolving kind of cathode and battery chemistries, is that with spodumene, you've got a pathway to hydroxide, but also to carbonate. So again, in a world where technology is changing rapidly, spodumene has a key role to play. So a quick snapshot of our projects in South America, and look, I mentioned the focus of today will be Salinas, but the point I want to make here is that we do have a core competency in terms of operating in South America. As an organisation, we've been there for 15 years. I've lived in South America for over 3 years. And so just in terms of getting things done and the relationships that we have, we're on a very good point. And the key for us is that, look, there's lots of lithium projects out there, but the truth is you've got to show a pathway to get to market quickly. And we think that Brazil provides that. So talking about Brazil, so we're in the state of Minas Gerais. And for those that don't know, look, there are over 300 operating mines in the region at the moment. And I think the key thing for us is that, you know, we want to get to market producing spodumene, but we want to do it sustainably. And the state of Minas Gerais, favourably for us, is backed by hydroelectricity. So again, very much supporting our aims of being a very sustainable producer. So I mentioned Sigma earlier. So look, Sigma is the best benchmark that we have. It is known in Australia, but it's listed on the NASDAQ and TSX. It has a market cap at the moment of a little bit over US $4 billion. The reason why we mention them is that, look, one, they've just gone to market. So they're producing spodumene, they're operating. They got up and running in 14 months, so construction of mine and plant, which is absolutely fantastic. But the key reason why we mention them is that they're only 40 kilometres away in the state of Minas Gerais. And so, you know, there's no shame in what we say, and that we're really trying to emulate their success because they truly have achieved great things in their short period of development. Things to mention in that, look, they started out in 2018 with a resource of 13 million tonnes, same resource as us, and we think that we can follow their trajectory in terms of resource growth. Look, other key things I'd point out is that, again, I mentioned the construction very quick at 14 months. The CapEx and OpEx are benchmarked very favourably against existing benchmarks in the market. So overall, a massive success story for Brazil and Minas Gerais, and one that we're looking to replicate. And to that point, we're using the same consultants across engineering, across permitting, across a lot of, I guess, facets of our business in country. And so again, they've kind of set the pathway for us that we're looking to follow very quickly. So talking about our deposit, so the Salinas project is hosted by the Cleaner deposit. And as a bit of history, so we discovered the resource in 2019, and that was after a very deliberate program of trying to find resources that could emulate what Sigma have done. So a very deliberate program that we started drilling in earnest in early 2022. And in that year, we drilled 10,500 metres, and that led to our maiden resource of 13.3 million tonnes at 1.2% lithium. Look, we were happy with that as an initial resource, but we're very keen to point out that that was a first step. And this year, we're absolutely looking to take that to another level. So for reference, this year we're drilling 65,000 metres, with the bulk of that already complete. And the key milestone will be an upgraded resource in June 2023, so next month. Look, we don't have any numbers, but we expect that to be very big based on results to date. Actually, look, very similar slide, but the point here is that, you know, the reason why we're trying to grow this resource as quickly as possible is that, look, we know that to be meaningful and to make a difference in terms of the clean energy transition, we've got to be big. So we want to grow this resource big, inform our studies, and go to market with something which is meaningful. So look, a few drill and assay results there to the left, which I won't go through. I think the image is probably more illustrative of the success that we're seeing. So the colourful area to the right is the existing resource that underpinned the maiden resource that we came out with last year. So what we found is that as we've stepped out the drilling program west and southwest, we've seen a continuation of that pegmatite swarm. And the key point is not just an extension, we're actually seeing the vein thickness increase and grade. And so again, that's all going to come into the resource upgrade that we'll come out with next month, but it's all looking very, very positive. And the other key thing here is that we're seeing this continuity in this district at the moment. So very favourable from a mining perspective, which we open pit. And again, just really stepping out that drilling program and getting fantastic results. A cross section, everybody loves a cross section. And I think the point of this one is to say that the colorized area to the right, again, that's what underpins the existing resource. The drill holes to the left, and again, this is out of date because we're drilling very hard at the moment. We have 8 drill rigs on site, diamond core head. And so you can just see the magnitude of what we have to the left versus the right. It's meaningful in terms of the resource upgrade that we'll put into the market next month. So further afield, look, we want to be substantial in this space. So to do that, we have to be large, we have to be long life, and we have to be low cost. And so the drilling program for this year is, you know, very much focused on that black box in the first image. But what we found is that we do have outcropping pegmatites all along this southwest trend. And so look, later this year and leading into next year, really stepping out that drilling program because field work has shown, I guess, high prospectivity. And we think we're sitting on a very, very large district here in terms of, you know, spodumene. So met test work. So look, we're actually piloting at the moment at SGS Lakefield in Canada, which to my understanding is one of the best, I guess, facilities of its kind in the Americas. So very glad that we got a spot there. And look, the initial results have been fantastic. So, you know, it's at the lab and pilot level, but recovery is above 80% and grades of lithium reporting to concentrate of about 7%. So again, very promising that we'll look to scale up, but a very solid start. One thing I want to mention is that I think we have a very favourable geology and spodumene mix in Brazil. And so what I mean there is that we're seeing very low levels of mica and iron and also very good performance under crushing. So, you know, what that means for us is that we're very confident that we can go a DMS only flow sheet compared to a lot of Australian peers who have to include flotation. And look, the benefit in that flow sheet to us is that it's quicker, so we remove a step, but also in terms of capital, in terms of complication, it's a much simpler flow sheet that can still produce a very high quality concentrate. And in terms of support for that thesis that we're looking to test is that Sigma only have a DMS flow sheet at the moment, and we'll get an operating update in the next few months, but it seems to be working very well for them. So look, ESG, it's incredibly important for what we're looking to do, just because, you know, in addition to being the right thing to do, in terms of the customers that we're looking to attract and our shareholders, look, it's something that's very important to us. It's fair to say we're very early in our journey, but look, I'm fairly recent in terms of addition to the company, but I think the investments and the collaboration that we've done in country have been fantastic. But I really want to let our actions speak louder than our words. So I'll speak about milestones that are upcoming, but in our studies, we look to really flesh this out because I think we're on to a very good thing. So in terms of infrastructure, look, just covering off a few key items. Look, I spoke about power. So to be backed by hydro is fantastic for us. You know, extractive industry is very energy intensive. So a very good starting point. In terms of, you know, pathway to market, but also assisting with construction, we've got good port access, we've got good highways. It's a very mature trucking industry in Brazil, which is really going to support us. In terms of water, which is incredibly important, look, you know, we've done initial work and at this point, we're not seeing any major challenges, but I really want the studies to flush out, I guess, the activity there. But at this point, we're seeing, I guess, favourable conditions in that respect. So look, another slide on Minas-Gerais. Look, the point of this one is to say we recently celebrated a collaboration agreement with the state of Minas-Gerais, so our counterparts there. And look, it's absolutely fantastic for us to have their support. So the point of this agreement that we signed with them is to put our project, I guess, in a form of priority status in terms of review for permits and approval. So I think the state of Mitch RI, seeing the success of Sigma, they see what we can bring to the community and the economy. And so to have their support in terms of trying to fast track our pathway development is definitely aligned with what we're trying to achieve. So look, a little bit more on the studies, and look, I won't go into too much detail here as I'm not a technical person, but as with most things in life, it all starts with people. So from the owners team that we have in Perth, we have a new office in Toronto, but also the people on the ground. We have fantastic people working for us who are working very hard at the moment, progressing the technical side of what we're trying to achieve. From a consultant perspective, look, we've been very lucky in that as Sigma has now, started its ramp up, it's completed construction, we've got a lot of the team that supported Sigma getting into operation quickly, supporting us. I mentioned from engineering, permitting, approvals, etc. So we're in a very good space. In terms of environmental work, look, we don't want permits and approvals to be a bottleneck which constrains us getting to market as quick as possible. So we were very early on in starting baseline work to make sure we get ahead of the curve in that regard. And so I'll get into milestones, but moving along very well from a technical perspective. Okay, so schedule. So I spoke about the next key milestone, which is the resource upgrade in June 2023. Should be a very big one. The next milestone after that, which will be very much informed by the resource upgrade, will be the PEA or scoping study that we'll release in Q3 2023. And look, from a personal perspective, in addition to having all the technical and commercial and environmental components of that, that will be the first time that we put a valuation into the market. And look, based on initial results that we do in-house, that is looking very attractive. So very keen to get those numbers out there, and I think the market will appreciate them. And then from there, look, it's a straight shot to DFS. So we're looking to complete the DFS in H1 2024 with supporting work streams. Look, one thing I want to mention is that there's a lot of commercial work happening in the background, but look, for us, there's no shortage of inbound requests to talk about offtake, partnerships, etc. But the key point is that until we really know the full potential of what we've got, we don't really want to go to market. So we're kind of putting them at bay at the moment, but it's looking very promising. I think at last count, we had about 18 requests for, partnership, offtake and the like. So lots of inbound demand. Similar story here. So look, Gigafactory slide, we borrowed this from Joe Lowry. The point of this is to say that there's so much downstream investment happening, not only in USA, but also in Canada, but also in Western Europe and other parts of the world. They're going to need a lot of greenfield projects to support these investments downstream. And we think that our project in Brazil has an important role to play. Again, we think Brazil is in a very advantageous location, so happy to support that push. So look, in terms of board and management, look, we have great experience here across corporate governance. I mentioned the experience in South America, but worth highlighting the recent addition of Peter Oliver. And look, so for those in the room, Peter Oliver used to run Greenbushes. So for 15 years, he was the GM, and he also ran Talison Lithium. So look, an absolute asset in terms of lithium knowledge. And for someone like Peter to choose our company to kind of partner with and lead is just excellent support for the strategy that we're looking to execute. From a corporate perspective, look, very well capitalized at the moment. We recently completed a very successful raise and the biggest one of our history. So very happy with where we sit at the moment. Big thank you to our loyal shareholders. We've got a few institutional players mentioned here in Integra and Waratah. One very, I guess, important milestone for us that we're very happy about was the addition of 2 investment banks that are in Brazil. These 2 were actually early investors in Sigma. So they see the journey, they see what we can achieve, so to have their support is great. And also a big thank you to our retail following, which is massive, and it was great to interact this week. So again, thank you for your loyalty. And so look, I will end it there, but thank you very much for listening, and please come up and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Tim. He's beautifully quietly spoken, isn't he, Tim? And he worked, the lady who's walking past and giving a smile to him at the moment, the 2 of you, I believe, used to share maybe an office or a jurisdiction together, something like that. They're mild-mannered accounting auditors together, walking around or traipsing around Western Australia and Australia, kicking gold piles, etc., and trying to figure out how much gold was in things and coal, etc. So Tim, we'll let you go out the back to your booth. But isn't it interesting where you both ended up? All this, it gave a real interest or a real passion for you in the mining and resources industry, and here you are now. Now, we've got Technology Metals Australia Limited. So Elisha, who is on the stage now, former colleague of Tim's, Usually we'd have a big fella up here at the front. We'd have, if you've been to our conferences before, you'd know that Ian Prentice is usually front and centre. So Elisha apparently staged a bit of a coup and decided she wanted to come over and speak to you. It may have something to do with the fact that her favourite team, the Dockers, is playing this week here in Sydney, but she assures me no. So would you please put your hands together and welcome Technology Metals Australia CFO Elisha Civil to present the company's journey towards net zero energy resources. Please make her welcome.
Thanks very much for that introduction, Chrissy. And I've tried to push our branding today on the slides as close as purple to as I could and get away with it. So I think I've succeeded in that. Afternoon, everyone, and congratulations on making it through to the afternoon of day 3. I'm very conscious that I'm holding you back from lunch. So as a person who has a tendency to get a little bit hangry, I'm very focused on keeping to time. So it's my privilege today to provide you with an update on what we're doing at Technology Metals with our Murchison Technology Metals project and the role that vanadium will play in the clean energy future. Here's our disclaimer. Please read it in detail at your leisure. It's available on the ASX platform. Our corporate snapshot. We were listed in 2016 and we currently have around 210 million shares on issue and a market cap at the close of trade yesterday of $71 million. We closed the last quarter at the end of March with $8.1 million of cash on hand. Our top 20 shareholders hold about 58% of the stock, with Resource Capital Funds, the biggest of those, at 17.1%. And the large part of our top 20 have been with us along the whole journey of our vanadium story, from the start at Gabanintha with our DFS in 2019, then as we drilled out Yarrabubba to the south, and mid last year we brought those two projects together as the Murchison Technology Metals project. So Gabanintha plus Yarrabubba equals the MTMP, and vanadium is the sole focus, and now I'm going to look at why you should be investing in us. It really only boils down to 4 key points. Our project fundamentals, our geology, our process flow sheet, and our jurisdiction are world-class. Our product, vanadium, is absolutely critical and it's on every country's critical minerals list that has one. And it's important not just for the steel market and the battery transition, but on both of those factors, it's going to help us achieve a net zero future. Our team is really experienced. We're building a really terrific team here, and we've got the skills to deliver this project and return some value to our shareholders. And we're forming some really critical partnerships with some key customers and investors that are going to help us along this journey. So starting with the team, a lot of you probably are familiar with Ian. He's been a part of this story right from the very beginning, along with Michael and Sonu and John. They're all across the geology. They're very well respected with our local community members as well as our shareholders. Dave was officially appointed as the COO at the beginning of 2002, but he too has been involved with the project since the Gabanintha DFS. And he's been responsible for delivering a lot of major mining projects in the past. And he also learnt a lot about how not to do vanadium with his experience at Windermurra, which had a number of attempts at producing vanadium successfully. And then there's myself and Carmen, who joined in August, September 2022. Carmen has a wealth of major project experience through her time at Anglo American and in other global majors. And while I recently came out of Fortescue, I've had previous experience at Galaxy Resources, which held the Mount Catlin lithium deposit near Ravensthorpe, which has again been subject to another takeover announcement this morning as part of the Allchem transaction that was announced. But way back at the beginning, I was part of a company called Regis Resources, and I was part of the team there that took the company from exploration through to producing 300,000 ounces of gold per annum in about 5 years. And I've been really looking on the lookout for the opportunity to do that again and be part of a team that takes a company from the very beginnings of exploration through to that project development and operations. So I found TMT. And why did I choose? And keeping in mind, same as Mitch, I'm an accountant, so this is going to be really simple from a technical point of view. We've got a large, high-grade resource, a significant chunk of which we've managed to convert into a reserve, so about 45 million tonnes at 0.9% vanadium, which gives us around a 25-year life of mine. Our granted mining tenure covers the section of the ore body that have outcropped, meaning we've got the best access to fresh ore and less oxidation. If any of you sat through Dr. Sean Wren's presentation on RVT, this is the opposite to what he said, and that's okay. So we've done a lot of test work on our ore body, and we know that along this strike, fresh ore is best and will achieve the best results and highest recoveries for our style of mineralisation. There's nothing too fancy or innovative about our process flow sheet. We're using fairly proven vanadium processing technology. We've had to tweak it around the edges, but fundamentally, we're going to follow we've got really good access to natural gas in WA as well, and that's going to give us low cost emissions throughout that process. And all of this is going to give us a high purity vanadium product. So it's about 99% V2O5 is our final output. And our southern tenement at Yarrabubba also delivers a bonus product called ilmenite, which is a titanium dioxide for the first 9 years. And that revenue really helps keep our project economics really robust. We had, at the start of this year, we had a really positive letter of interest from the Danish Export Credit Agency, EKF. And they've put together high-level terms with the potential to fund us up to $150 million. So it's a really great start and a really positive impact for our project. So all of this is really great. So why aren't we in production already? A lot of shareholders have probably been coming past and asking us that of late. Not sure if you saw last week, but the Fraser Institute do an annual survey of mining attractiveness. And WA used to be top, and it was a great jurisdiction to work in. And we've recently lost that #1 spot to Nevada. And it's not on geological attractiveness. We're still showing really positive feedback and expectations from mining companies on the geology. But we've lost our top spot due to some of those difficulties that companies are experiencing around regulatory approvals and uncertainty. So, you know, I'm still really pleased that our project's in Australia, and we've got really good representation of other states in that top 10. And just outside the top 10, we've got Queensland at 13th. But it was kind of a relief, to be honest, to go, we're not the only ones struggling through this environmental approvals process. So where are we at with that? Really importantly, we are continuing to make progress on the environmental approvals. We've first referred our project back in 2019, and we last received comments back on revision 3 of our environmental review document late last year. And, you know, that's a long time between first referring it and getting comments back on the 3rd revision. And not all of that is to do with the regulatory process. A lot of it's also been due to us and making changes to our project. But the commentary coming out of the last revisions were a result of some of that changing legislative environment, particularly around greenhouse gas emissions and heritage engagement. The photo on the bottom left of this slide is from a couple of weeks ago, where we had a negotiation meeting with our traditional owners. Our traditional owners of the land where our project is are the Ioneer people. And a couple of weeks ago, our full TMT board and the Ioneer's prescribed body corporate had a very respectful and constructive meeting on some of those compensation payment negotiations. And we're moving much closer towards closing the gap and reaching an agreement on that. And that'll be covering the payments that are payable by us to the traditional owners through each stage of the process, through construction, operations, and then through mine closure. The other element of traditional owner engagement has been the drafting and development of a cultural heritage management plan. And there's also been a lot of activity on this front during the last few months to really develop a pathway towards delivering that plan and scheduling out all the on-country and other activities that we need to do as part of that. It's really important to note that finalising that plan is not a condition to achieving EPA approval, but the EPA has to be assured that we're on the right track and working constructively together, which I'm pretty confident that we are. On the greenhouse gas emissions side of things, we've been working hard to map out our pathway to net zero, which is another requirement of the EPA process. And this slide just shows how we're planning on doing that. First, with using some of the known technologies to displace those carbon-based fuels with solar in electricity generation for the camp and other mine site infrastructure. Then moving through the less sort of certain and well-known options of non-carbon fuels for the mining fleet before cracking the last and hardest nut on the kiln. And how do you heat up a 130-metre long kiln that's 6 metres in diameter to 1200 degrees Celsius with something other than a carbon-based fuel? So really creative work being done by the team on heat efficiency and retaining the heat for as long as possible, so you're not losing as much and having to reheat it again. All right, so the other thing we've been really working very hard on is project economics. A lot of our people who have been following us for a while will know that late last year we went out to a commercial competitive tender process, And we got those, the results back in, and in March we announced that we were going to partner with GRES and Iron Mine Contracting, as well as FL Schmidt, on the main packages required to deliver the project. And so this partnership really allows those key contractors inside the tent with the MTMP team, and allow them to eradicate some of the inefficiencies and contingencies that might have been in their proposals because they were developed in isolation of each other. So once you can start working together and working out when certain bits of equipment can be installed, when certain construction materials will be available, you can start to really drive efficiency in some of those cost and schedule elements. And we're starting, it's early days, but we're starting to see some positive output from that process already. We're continuing to engage with APA under our early works agreement that we signed back in June 2022, I think. And they're making good progress through their traditional owner engagement, which is a process they have to follow as well through their pipeline corridor that we're proposing to get from, you know, where the pipeline currently ends around Windamurra up to our project. So it's a 155-kilometre corridor, and they're having to work with 2 traditional owner groups on heritage surveys and negotiations. And lastly, you might have seen in our last quarterly announcement that we've signed a cooperation agreement with Midwest Ports Authority, who run the Port of Geraldton. And that's really important for not just shipping our product out, but also getting some of those important reagents in and on the truck and on the road to the port, to the mine site in Meekatharra. All right, so that's the project. What are we using vanadium for? It's mainly 2 uses that are driving demand throughout the globe, and that's steel use and batteries. So steel's the historical use of vanadium, whereas the battery's the more emerging technology. Adding vanadium to steel basically increases its strength, so you use less steel, which means there's fewer carbon emissions in your end product. And the vanadium story in the batteries is the really cool sort of thematic that interested me and attracted me to TMT as a proposition. The VRFB technology was actually invented right here in the University of New South Wales in the mid-80s, and it's something that never really had its time in the sun until now, and we really can benefit from the benefits of a vanadium battery. And we've formed important relationships at TMT with potential off-takers on both sides of this demand spectrum. We've got the partnerships with CNMMC in China for a 2,000 tonne per annum binding offtake, as well as an MOU with Tata Steel out of India. And on the battery side, we've got our partnership with the Japanese electrolyte producer LE System, as well as the recently announced partnership with Delectric, who are an Indian battery manufacturer. Oops. Uh-oh. There we go. So in 2022, the vanadium market overall was pretty much in balance, with not much moving the dial from how it was used through steel and battery applications. But we can see in a lot of forecasts that the battery demand side is really expected to take off. And this is forecast to result in a 45,000 tonne per annum supply shortage by 2031. With the MTMP's production around 12,500 tonnes per annum, there's more than enough room for another couple of vanadium players in the market. So why vanadium batteries? They've got a lot of qualities that mean they're not going to displace lithium from the battery market. You're still going to need lithium batteries in your phone and your cars, but what they're actually really good for is that long duration energy storage for your solar and wind and other renewables projects, mainly because they don't catch fire, and they're also really long lasting. So they've got a 20-year life. The vanadium that you put in at the start is fully recyclable and recoverable at the end of it. And the vanadium acts as both the anode and the cathode through its different oxidation states. So you're really only relying on one chemical element. You don't need to find nickel and cobalt and other minerals to go with your lithium battery. Oh, my little clicker's not going. This chart really just shows where that VRFB sits in the energy storage mix. And the current expectations are we're going to need 50 gigawatts of energy storage capacity in Australia to meet our net zero target by 2050. China's really leading the way in VRFB deployment, and that's really on the back of the government in China saying they're not going to use lithium or sodium sulfur batteries for energy storage anymore due to the safety risks. So we can see that demand really changing China from a net exporter of vanadium to a net importer. The other big deployment of VRFBs is in North America, and this slide's got your key little back of the envelope calculation, is that it needs about 10 tonnes of V2O5 for 1 megawatt hour of battery storage. So we understand the importance of developing that downstream use case for our vanadium, and we're forming partnerships on that. So our partnership with LE System allows us to license their technology and build the electrolyte plant in Australia, and to work with partners like D'Electric to for them to build their electrolyte plants onshore in Australia, always using our feedstock as the supply source. And it also makes commercial sense because you want to be making the electrolyte near where you want to produce the battery. Getting stalked. I am really hungry, sorry. And so it's really important to be building that place where you want to be. I thought I had 2 minutes from the ding. Has it been 2 minutes?
Thought.
Oh, thought. So we all know about steel. That's important. I'll flick through these slides really quickly. India is where we're seeing a lot of the steel demand come from because they're developing their high-speed rail infrastructure. And our MOU with Tata is really positioning as well to take advantage of that thematic. Funding, nothing's really changed on funding. We're working really hard and we're kicking off our ITE process next week to support some of those funding discussions with our financiers. We started behind.
Bring it home, come on, bring it home.
So we'll just recap back with why you need to be thinking about TMT as your next vanadium investment if you don't already have one in your portfolio. We've got a terrific project, we've got a fantastic team. Vanadium's absolutely critical for the clean energy transition, and we're working with the right people to deliver this project for you. So if you want to talk about all the things that I've missed out and skipped over in this, we're at booth 7. Bring your sandwich down and we can have a chat. Thank you.
Right. She is a Virgin Conference speaker, so we give her a little bit more time, but good on her. And yeah, otherwise we wouldn't want Sydney like that at the final bell. You coming up here, sir? You got your fast shoes on today, Mr. Ron Mitchell. You know how we've got a Mr. Lithium? This is Australia's kind of Mr. Lithium, aren't you? He's getting a reputation as the lithium man. I was going to say the lithium nerd, but I'm not sure if that's a term of endearment or what it is, but he certainly loves his lithium and he knows a lot about it. I was reading an interesting headline about global lithium in the last couple of days. There was a little comment made about it saying that it is a higher risk exploration company with a solid upside. What do you think of that as you go into your speech?
I disagree with the high risk, but I'll talk through the preso.
You like the last bit? All right. Would you please make Ron Mitchell, Managing Director of Global Lithium Resources. Welcome, everyone.
Thanks, Chrissy. Look, I'll get through this as quickly as possible. Firstly, thanks to the Vertical Events team. Do a wonderful job. This is certainly a great example of that. So obviously kept very busy with the news overnight, the largest lithium deal in the history of the lithium industry. Unfolded, and certainly there's increasing sort of focus on sort of the next wave of near-term development stories, of which our project certainly is one of those. So for those who aren't familiar with Global Lithium, we listed on the ASX in 2021. We're the best performing IPO in 2021. We came as part of that listing with a single asset, our Marble Bar Lithium project. We now have 2. We've delivered one of the largest exploration campaigns last year in the lithium space, close to 80,000 metres of drilling across both projects. We now have a combined resource of more than 50 million tonnes. We've got 70 million in the bank. We've just completed a scoping study for our Mana project, and we're now underway with a DFS, and we've just had our second year anniversary on the 6th of May. So we've accomplished a lot in the last few years, and we've got a really well-credentialed, experienced team across development, exploration, approvals, and of course commercial. So great pleasure to be talking through our project this afternoon. So firstly, a quick disclaimer. What makes us unique and why invest? There's a number of really strategic highlights from our view. We're multi-asset. We own 2 resources outright, 2 of only 14 in Australia. There aren't many, and most of them are in development. As I mentioned, a 50 million tonne resource, a resource that has high prospectivity of increasing further this year, again on the back of a very large-scale exploration campaign, which I'll talk about. JORC compliance is hard to get to. What I will say about most of the lithium projects, the easy hanging fruit have already been discovered, pegged, tenemented, or are in production. Typically, the easier to discover resources are typically outcropping, so you've got targets immediately. Going forward, it's going to be a case of good old-fashioned high-risk exploration, and that's why we're low risk. Both of our projects, obviously in the best jurisdiction to be mining, in our view, and within Western Australia, the Pilbara and the Eastern Goldfields are exceptional areas to be mining. Tier 1 jurisdiction I mentioned, we do have strategic cornerstones on our register, wonderful partners on the downstream and the upstream side. Lithium, as I often refer to around the offtake piece, and we've heard multiple speakers talk about this, our product's our weapon. We're not going to give it away, and there's tremendous interest. The interest on the downstream piece for partnering with very significant capital prepays is really nothing short of spectacular. And we've got a really strong team, very strong team. Our geo team has more than 80 years of experience, so they know how to hunt and find lithium. And then in terms of commercial development, technical de-risking, we've got a really good mix at the board level, and of course management. Just an overview of the company, pretty tightly held register, 250 odd million shares on issue. Our market cap at the moment is just over 400. And again, the register, a couple of strategics taking 20%, some high net worth individuals taking about 12, board and management 4.5, and a balance of retail institutional shareholding on the back of our private placement last year, around 18%. And as I mentioned, 70 mil in the bank and a couple of brokers covering the story. Just want to share some intel on the market. I've got a technical team in China at the moment, and part of that is meeting with spodumene beneficiation players, but also some of the lithium hydroxide producers, but also gathering some intelligence around the real situation in China. And they've shared some of that information with me. Certainly, demand is strong. It's improving almost on a daily basis. What we are going to see in China in the second half of this year is an incredible emergence of increased demand, which is obviously results in greater requirements of lithium raw materials to be fed into that market. Strong global government support, and of course the supply risks, in my view, are vastly underestimated. I've been in the sector 13 years and really understand full well how hard it is to get projects up. It's a big challenge. There is a number of sort of regional support policies. Obviously, the US, the IRA is making very big impact in terms of the deployment of capital, and also from the US's free trading partners like the Japanese and Koreans, and where they're looking to deploy that capital. And of course, in the EU, there's the Critical Raw Materials Act, and there's a like for like. The Germans are very, very proactive. So we've fielded a number of delegations from these jurisdictions and others. And the discussion now around partnership is not just company to company, it's government to the private industry. It's quite remarkable, some of these delegations we've received of late in Western Australia. I'd like to share some intel on the lithium derivatives market. It's a market that's evolving rapidly, and it's important because this shows a level of sophistication in the industry that is emerging. And the other hat I wear when I'm not the MD of Global Lithium is the chair of the LME and Cobalt committees. And there's a number of platforms now trading future cash-settled contracts, both for lithium hydroxide and lithium carbonate. And what I can say is that there is significant momentum building in this space, and it's really important as a risk mitigation tool. It also allows capital from the investment banks and other sectors to flow into this industry and help fund projects, and that's really, really important. Historically, pricing's all been behind closed doors, fixed prices. So these type of mechanisms, which I'm working through with the LME, are very, very important to help this market grow and to ensure that when investors do come into the market, they can do so with confidence, having a reasonable understanding of how pricing is structured. There's been phenomenal interest in the derivative space. As I said here, this chart shows the increasing demand. Talking to lithium brokers, the forward price curves for lithium, very, very strong. And the forward price curves, both bid and offers around these derivative products, really can garner confidence around where pricing is going to settle. And the view generally in the market based on these forward estimates, spodumene pricing is not going south of $4,000 a tonne out to December 2024. So stronger for longer. A little bit on our project. 100% owned our Mana Lithium project. This will be a mine of the future, I'm convinced. Spodumene bearing, we currently have a resource there of 32.7 million tonnes. This resource will grow significantly on the back of a 50,000 metre campaign, RC and diamond, we have planned this year. Wonderful jurisdiction to be mining. Again, tier one infrastructure, we have completed some study work around logistics. We're really spoiled. We've got a rail siding about 13 kilometres south of the project site. So we'll be able to move either a DSO or a concentrate in a number of directions and to our customers. We'll talk about exploration upside. The asset itself is shaping and growing. Working with our geology team, we've identified a very large and highly prospective additional target to the northeast of the existing resource. You can see the pit shell here. More than 50% of the current tonnes are in the indicated position. We'll continue to improve on that throughout the course of this year. But we think the growth in the resource in terms of the scale and also the grade, there's some incredible grades in this northeast extension, and this will be the subject for a combination of infill and extensional drilling throughout the course of this year. Exploration is key. Our geo team's been very busy for the first quarter of this year, undertaking a number of geophysical and geochemical surveys, both on the ground and airborne surveys, and really allowing the company to identify a number of additional targets. And there's some phenomenal targets throughout the tenemency. Again, on the back of the acquisition of this project on a 100% basis last year, we now have increased the land holding 5x. So yeah, our geology team is thrilled, and there's been an amazing amount of de-risking geological work has taken place the first quarter of this year, and we're looking forward to getting on and drilling out the resource in the coming months. Our mining lease application has been submitted, a real key milestone. Not many companies get to submit a mining lease application. So we're confident, within 12 months, we could be in a position to be backing up trucks, drill blasting, digging, shipping, and generating cash through a DSO model. So that's something we'll continue to investigate as a company, but we're thrilled with this. A lot of work goes into submitting an application for a mining lease, as many of you may know. We're also doing a DFS. So we've got a really strong owners team. We've got in-house metallurgical mining engineering capability. We're working with Wave International. Wave's a gun lithium consultant. They've got a really strong metallurgical and process design team. And one of the Wave process managers is with our technical delegation in China as we speak. This project got underway. We've collected around 9,000 kilograms of core to support this MET program, but also the vendor testing. Most of you know the spodumene flow sheet is quite simple. It's proven technology, low risk and low capex. So that makes it really easily deployable, and that's why our project is of interest by many at the moment. We have two projects though. Our Marble Bar project up in the Pilbara arguably has some of the best infrastructure I've ever seen at a mining project. We have a sealed road that runs to Port Hedland, running through our tenemency. In fact, we're drilling pegmatites 30 metres off that road. It's a large land holding, and to the west of us, two very famous lithium deposits in Pilgangoora and Wodgina. We've got some really high-grade lithium mineralisation here. We do have a JORC-compliant resource, close to 20 million tonnes. We expect that will grow as well on the back of this year's exploration. It's a big land package, as I mentioned. The green lines here show you our tenement boundary with the source granite. We have worked hard with CSA Global last year to identify a number of additional lithium mineralised targets that we can drill as part of this year's campaign. And you can see there we've got about 5 targets. So again, our team is really looking forward to getting on country. The heritage survey will be undertaken on the 22nd of May, and we're looking to have our first drill rig on site about a week later. So exploration, as I mentioned, 20,000 metres. We are going to be targeting a really nice gold anomaly to the north of the asset as well. But we've got about 4 lithium mineralisation targets we'll look to deploy, and no shortage of interest from the drilling crews looking to engage profile drilling, a team we've used with excellence over many years now, and they've got an impeccable safety record. So finishing off, I think I'm ahead of schedule for the first time ever, Chrissy. Key milestones for this year, there's a lot happening. We've got a big team, a very experienced team, exploration across both projects, a DFS with an ore reserve to come out in Q3 for Mana. The MET program ongoing, had some tremendous results. The metallurgy is shaping very positively, very favourably. We've got very low gang mineralogy within the core. And we actually have core deployed in 3 separate sites in China as well. So we've got a number of data points feeding in, giving us a lot of confidence around the flow sheet. DSO downstream, we are looking at some downstream optionality as well, using a lithium hydroxide. We are involved in active, conversations around partnership. We are going to have resource upgrades coming. Our approvals process is ongoing. We've got a very strong approvals team. We do have a full-time environmental land access manager joining the company on 1 June. And this all segues to a final investment decision on the downstream beneficiation plant. This will have scale. It's a 2 million tonne run of mine, producing about a 220 to 250,000 tonne SC 5.5 concentrate. And all going well, construction, start of production soon thereafter. About an 18-month build, followed by a 6 to 12-month ramp. So we will have our first spodumene concentrate production in 2026. But as I said, if we choose to go down the DSO route, it could be as early as 12 months from now. So last slide, clear strategy, position for growth, scalable resource is key. We've got a wonderful starting position in terms of our resource, but one that's clearly scalable and will grow. 2 projects gives us excellent development optionality in a really safe, investable mining jurisdiction in Western Australia. Value accretive. We're doing deals that add maximum value to our shareholders and our future shareholders, and obviously investigating DSO and downstream lithium hydroxide production is a core part of that. And lastly, strategic positioning. We are driven by ESG fundamentals. It's part of our core values. And we're creating an incredible culture, and we've attracted some really amazing talent. So with that, I'll finish my presentation. Thank you.
Thanks so much. And that would explain why you were so busy. And I was trying to catch you before, catch your eye, get the headline, get everything I could. So I delved in and got my own headline there. But you had things that you were busy doing, weren't you? Sitting there, and he was sitting in the front row literally answering emails and flicking things backwards and forwards. So congratulations, good on you, mate. Well done. Good to see some more. And we're looking forward to hearing more success in the years to come. Before our next presenter comes up on stage, I'd like to cast your attention, please, to our poll. The question was, what do you think the Federal Reserve will do in regard to interest rates in the upcoming Federal Open Market Committee meeting? 58% of you have said pause, 33% raise, and 8 for lower. I'd like to go with the 8, but there we go. We know what's probably going to happen, don't we? I'm with the one at the top. All right, the state of Nevada. Let me tell you a little bit of a story about the state of Nevada. Has anyone been to Nevada? 1, 2, 3. You might be really. Oh, 3. And Joanne down the front. So, okay. So the state of Nevada is currently working to secure its energy independence and close what they call over there the lithium loop. So it's known as the lithium capital of America, correct? And there are many Nevada companies who are being very creative and trying to find ways to form innovative partnerships to close the loop. I'm telling you this because it leads into this gentleman here. It leads into a very interesting announcement which was made, was it in the last 24 hours, literally?
Yes.
Literally the last 24 hours, yeah. Out of Nevada, involves our next presenter up on stage, lithium boron supplier Ioneer, led by this fellow, Bernard Rowe, Aussie.
I am Aussie.
Aussie,
indeed.
but he spent 20 years in Nevada. Will you make him welcome, please? And let's listen to this story.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for the welcome. So Ioneer owns the Rhyolite Ridge Lithium and Boron project in Nevada, as you mentioned, a place where I've spent on and off the last 20 years, and particularly the last decade, I've spent nearly all of my working time there. It's an area, it's a wonderful jurisdiction. There's a reason why it ranks #1 on the Fraser Institute, and it's got a tremendous mining history thanks to the gold industry, but it also has a wonderful opportunity around lithium and being the cornerstone of domestic lithium supply for the US EV market. And that's why we are there, to provide those materials into that burgeoning supply chain. Rhyolite Ridge, just for those who don't know the project, it's lithium and boron. It's somewhat different than other lithium projects because of that boron element contained in the deposit. We are at a stage where we're gearing up to commence construction in the first half of next year. We would have a 2-year build, so first production in 2026. We have $1.2 billion US in funding, of which $700 million is going to come from the US government, Department of Energy. We have all of our offtakes in place, including with Ford, Toyota, and EcoPro, and we're well positioned to take this project into production and become a meaningful supplier in the United States. Now, in terms of numbers, 22,000 tonnes of lithium carbonate a year. So this is different than other hard rock deposits. It's not spodumene. So we will be making lithium carbonate at the site. So that in itself is unusual. But in addition to 22,000 tonnes of lithium, we'll be producing 174,000 tonnes of boric acid, which would make us the third largest boron producer in the world after the Turkish government and Rio Tinto. So it's just as much a boron deposit as it is a lithium deposit. The resource and reserves, I'll touch on them in a minute in more detail, but we have reserves already drilled for 26 years of production, and we have a resource, if it's all converted to a reserve, making that assumption, it would be enough for something like 60 years of production. And we've just recently come out and announced a major resource update to the point that this deposit now contains 3.4 million tonnes of contained lithium carbonate. So again, that would take about 150 years to mine that at 22,000 tonnes a year. So it's a very large deposit, it's very advanced, it's essentially funded, and the offtake agreements are in place. A disclaimer that you should read before making any investment decisions. The US flag is on this slide for a reason up front. It's an American project. The lithium's going to stay in America. It's going to become a cornerstone to the US EV supply chain. Our board, the company, the government are adamant about that, and so that's what we are doing. But it's more than just a lithium deposit in the United States. It's actually about securing the supply chain in the United States, where there is minimal lithium production today in the second largest vehicle market in the world. That doesn't make any sense, and that's why the US government are doing something about this. It's not just about producing raw material, because you need chemical processing in order to make lithium ion batteries and the full supply chain. So this is actually about security of supply, national security. It's about innovation and US competitiveness in the lithium ion battery space. And there are very, very limited projects in the United States that can be in production this decade. And that's why we are so well positioned to play a major role in that. Quick snapshot of the company, listed on the ASX. We're also listed on NASDAQ. We did that last year as part of an ongoing process to have a more awareness and exposure to the company to US investors. But you can see the numbers there. We have a market capitalisation of just under 800 million Australian dollars, rather, 60 million US cash in the bank, so about 90 million Australian. We quote everything in US dollars really because of the reporting that we do in the US, so you'll see us doing that all the time. Our major shareholders, our largest shareholder is Centurus Funds Management, which is a family office based in Houston, Texas, that's come from the oil and gas industry. We also have Sibanye-Stillwater, the largest platinum and palladium producer in the world, and one of the larger top 5 gold producers of the world are on our register as well, and they will become our future joint venture partner as we move forward with this project. Very experienced board. We set out right from the outset that if we could demonstrate the economics of this project and the pathway to production and financing, of course, then that we would intended to take it into production ourselves with the appropriate partnering, which we've done. But because of that, we have a team that's both built and operated lithium and boron mines previously in South America, but globally in the mining industry, in boron in America. And, a tremendous sort of team. Nearly all of these people are based in the United States. So whilst we are ASX listed, really our team works out of our Reno office, where we have about 35 people. Our board of directors, half the board are US based as well. So, and you're going to continue seeing that transition with the company as we go into construction and production. I'm not going to talk about the lithium market. I'm sure other people, including Ron, just mentioned it. I think, one thing though I would reflect, okay, when I started working on this project, we used $6,000 lithium price and we stress tested at $4,000 a tonne, and this project worked back then at those levels. And when we did a DFS in 2020, we used $11,000 lithium price and $700 boric acid price, and this project worked and had very robust economics. You can imagine today, if we use a $20,000 or a $30,000 price or in that range, then the economics are extremely robust, despite the fact that the cost of everything, both the operating costs and the capital costs of increasing over the years, but nevertheless, this project will be very robust at any lithium price within reason. I do want to touch on this one though, because you know I've been 6 years working on this project, exclusively on this project with Ioneer. I'm one of the founders of Ioneer, so I was around before then, but this is what we've been doing for the last 6 years. And what I've heard again and again and again is that, particularly from the US side of things, investors and government, is that they want to do something about addressing the supply chain security issue. Okay, and really when you look at this chart's worse than it was when I started talking to the US government 6 years ago, because whilst Australia has gone from producing about 40% of the world's lithium to about 60% of the world's lithium, it hasn't addressed anything at all to do in the downstream stage 2 and stage 3 chemical processing, because all spodumene deposits produce a mineral concentrate that gets taken somewhere else, sometimes a short distance, sometimes overseas. A lot of that today gets done in China. And so really we haven't done anything yet to address this supply chain dominance of China, and that's what the US government's trying to do. And that's why Ioneer was successful in securing the $700 million conditional commitment for a loan. It's not about a mine, it's about chemical processing and addressing the stage 2 and stage 3 on this slide. And there's not many places in the world where, the reality is there's just not many places in the world where that's happening today. It will change, but it's taken longer than everyone thinks. In terms of the US market, 5,000 tonnes. That's all the US produces of lithium carbonate today. It consumes about 100,000 tonnes. Okay, but by the end of this decade, it's going to consume just under 1 million tonnes. So 1 million tonnes consumed and 5,000 tonnes produced. You would need a lot of rhyolite ridges in production to even produce a small percentage of that 1 million tonnes, and it's only going to increase from there. So this is a major issue for the US government, and they are doing something about it. That's why you've got things like the IRA happening, Inflation Reduction Act. It's got to happen. They don't have a choice, okay? That's my view. It has to happen. Borates, you can read this slide for yourselves, but it's a great match with lithium in our deposit because there's a lot of it, okay? The world consumes a lot of it. China and US are number 1 and 2. It gets used in a whole heap of different applications, and it's got a very, very stable price over the last 100 years. And so I mentioned before about lithium, you know, fluctuating between, say, $6,000 a tonne back in 2016 up to $80,000 a tonne last year. Then boron does the exact opposite. It's very flat, it's very stable, and a lot of people refer to it as boring boron, but it's a great combination to have in a mining project where you can rely on that much more stable revenue and take advantage of the volatility of the lithium price. So the project itself, it's a lake deposit. So these were ancient lakes 6 million years ago, filled with water, and the sediments that were deposited at the bottom of those lakes had a lot of lithium and boron in it. And there isn't another deposit like this anywhere in the world. There's a couple that are a little bit similar, Boron, California, which is Rio Tinto's mine, the Jadar deposit in Serbia, a little bit similar, but different, okay? This is the only one that's really like this. And so the way we're going to produce lithium, extract it, we're using known technology, we're just applying it to a really unique deposit. There's a lot of it. It's a very large deposit. These two green areas, they outline these old ancient lake beds, which we know have got lithium and boron in them. The red area down the bottom, this might be a bit difficult to see, but the red area down the bottom is the only area that we've so far done extensive drilling, okay? So 360 million tonnes, 3.4 million tonnes of lithium carbonate is sitting in that red area there, the resource area of 3 square kilometres, and you can see the size of the areas. We've done some scout drilling, so we know the other areas are mineralised, but we have not yet done resource drilling. So the deposit is huge. We did a 2020 feasibility study. People often ask us, why haven't we updated it? Well, we are, and we will. release that update of the 2020 feasibility study when we are ready to commence construction, when we have to make a final investment decision for our board, for the US government, Department of Energy, who will provide the loan, and for our partner Sibanye. So it's coming, okay, but there was no reason whatsoever to do that last year or the year before. The time to do it and you know, announce it will be when we're ready to make that final investment decision. But we're very, very confident around the robust economics. CapEx has gone up, yes. OpEx has gone up, without a doubt. But the lithium price is a whole lot higher than $11,000 a tonne. And in fact, the boric acid price is a lot higher than 700 as well. But as I say, it's not, you know, we don't rely on that because we like the low volatility of the boron price. Okay, how did we get to where we are today? We spent $140 million working on this project. So that's a big part of it. We've put a lot of money into, thank you, put a lot of money into investing into this project to make it what it is today. And we've used a very technically led approach, okay? We've done a lot of bench scale testing. We've done a lot of piloting. All aspects of this project have been looked at from an engineering and technical perspective. We've got offtake agreements with Ford, Toyota, EcoPro, some of the world's leaders and people that are going to be manufacturing electric vehicles in the future in the United States. You can see some of the names, you know, Caterpillar, Fluor, Veolia, Shell, because of the supply of sulfur. Shell will supply 100% of the sulfur to this project, and they're the largest trader of sulfur in the world. So there's a lot of big names associated with this project, and it's been through that technically led approach. And that's also ultimately how we've managed to get Sibanye to commit $490 million US and the US Department of Energy to commit to the conditional $700 million. So quick snapshot of where we are. We've done the offtake agreements to secure the debt. To be fully funded, essentially we say we are near to full because we don't have yet the final estimates, but as I said, they're coming, but we do have $1.2 billion. And the CapEx estimate back in 2020 was just under 800 million. And yes, it will have gone up significantly, but we're well positioned with 1.2 billion in place. Construction ready, we've done all the engineering work that we need to be in construction. We could go at any time, really. And to be fully permitted. And the permitting is why, when I said we're ramping up to be ready to commence construction early next year, on the first half of next year, that's about permitting. We've got 2 of the main 3 key permits. We have 1 more to get, and the US government has said that they intend to make a decision on that permit early next year. I'm going to skip these because of time, but the permitting in the United States is a complex process. There is no doubt about it, but we've heard again and again, you know, many parts of the world are complex when it comes to permitting, and US is no exception. So we are within about 8 months of getting our final decision on our main 3rd permit. You can see here on this timeline, it shows it very nicely. That hasn't happened overnight. And in fact, we started work on the project in 2016. We kicked off the permitting in 2019, did 2 years of baselines, and we've done a lot of work in the preparation and pre-planning to be where we are today. And I just want to say that when the Department of Energy did their due diligence, which took 2 years on this project, Jigar Shah is the director of the Loan Programs Office, and his quote is there, that this should provide assurances to equity investors that the administration believes the project has a pathway forward to obtaining that permit. In other words, they were not concerned about the pathway to full permitting, and nor are we. We've still got work to do, but we're well positioned to complete that work and be permitted. Thank you very much, everyone. And please come to our booth if you would like to talk further.
Thank you. Sorry to do that to you.
That's okay. No,
Thank you for wrapping up our session. Right. We've got the power 10-minuters coming up after the lunch. So go and get yourself some food, well fed. We're opening up our blinds again. Come back and sit down if you'd like to. Go and chat. We have a super base metal giant coming in. They're starting us up after lunch. So see if you can get back in for that one. Apollo Minerals. Speak to you all soon.